My name is Audrey Miller. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story behind something I called Mom Said I'd Ruin the Wedding. The family didn't expect what followed. It all started with one sentence my mother, Linda, whispered to my aunt in the kitchen. "If Audrey shows up, she'll ruin everything." I was standing close enough to hear every word, holding a box of decorations like I was part of the furniture, not the family. That moment felt like someone had quietly slammed a door in my face, and I realized I wasn't invited to my own sister's happiness, just tolerated. If this story is already hitting close to home, hit subscribe and drop a like. You're going to want to see how this unfolds, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because what happened after that whisper is when the wedding, and my role in this family, started to fall apart. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't throw the box I was holding. Even though my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it, I just walked past my mother like I hadn't heard anything, set the box down in the living room, and smiled when my sister Emily asked if I could help confirm the catering numbers. On the outside, I looked calm, like always, but inside it felt like someone had reached into my chest and twisted something tight. The strange part is, I wasn't even surprised. This was just the first time she had said the quiet part out loud. You know that feeling when you finally hear in words what you've always felt in actions? My mother had always been obsessed with appearances, with making sure our family looked perfect from the outside. Growing up, our house was spotless before guests came over, our clothes pressed, our smiles practiced like lines in a play. If there was tension, anger, or hurt, it got shoved into the closet and hidden behind, "We're doing great, thanks for asking." In our family, the image came first, and the people inside it came second. I used to think that was normal, that every family had an invisible script they were forced to follow. I didn't know yet that this wedding would be the moment I finally walked off the stage. Families like mine protect appearances like fragile glass, polishing every surface while pretending not to see the cracks underneath. If you've ever felt like your family cared more about what neighbors or relatives thought than how you actually felt, make sure you're subscribed and tap that like button. What happens next is absolutely insane, and I'd love to know in the comments if you relate to this. My mother, my dad Mark, my sister Emily, even my brother Jason, we all had roles, like characters in a show we never auditioned for, but were still forced to play. And in this show there was always a villain waiting in the wings if anything went wrong, and somehow, that villain always ended up being me. My sister Emily was the golden child, the bride, the one who made good choices, as my mother liked to say. Jason was the charming mess, the funny one who could screw up and still get a laugh and a second chance. My dad floated between us all like a peacekeeper who never wanted to pick a side, always changing the subject when things got tense. And then there was me, the quiet one, the fixer, the invisible wire holding all the pretty lights up. If a bill was forgotten, I paid it. If Emily needed help planning, I made the spreadsheets. If my mother was overwhelmed, I was the one who stayed late, cleaning, organizing, smoothing things over. The problem with being the invisible wire is that no one notices you until you're gone and everything goes dark. For years, I thought being useful was the same as being loved. I thought if I held everything together, if I caused no trouble, if I swallowed my hurt and kept smiling, it meant I belonged. But hearing my mother say I would ruin everything showed me what my role really was. I wasn't part of the picture, I was just the glue behind the frame. And this story is what happens when the glue finally decides to let go, and everyone has to face what they've built without it. I wasn't the bride, I wasn't the favorite, and I definitely wasn't the loud one who demanded attention at family dinners. I was the person people called when they needed something fixed, sorted, or handled quietly without any fuss. When Emily's engagement was announced, my mother immediately handed me a binder. Yes, an actual 3-ring binder, filled with vendor contacts, budget sheets, and timelines she'd been collecting for months. "You're so organized, Audrey," she said with that smile that wasn't really a compliment, just an assignment disguised as one. I took the binder, flipped through pages of highlighted notes and sticky tabs, and felt that familiar weight settle on my shoulders. Responsibility without recognition, work without thanks. Over the next 6 months, I became the wedding's skeleton crew. I researched florists, compared prices, scheduled tastings, coordinated with the venue, tracked RSVPs, and followed up on every detail my mother didn't have time for. Emily would text me at midnight asking if we'd confirmed the photographer, and I'd already sent 3 follow-up emails that afternoon. My dad would ask vague questions like, "Is everything on track?" And I'd nod, knowing he had no idea what everything even included. If you've ever been the person doing all the work while someone else gets all the credit, hit that subscribe button and leave a like, because this story gets even more unbelievable. And I want to know in the comments if you've felt this invisible too. I didn't mind helping at first. I really didn't. Emily was my sister, and weddings are stressful, so I told myself this was what family did. But as the months went on, something started to shift inside me. I noticed how my mother would brag to relatives about how beautifully everything is coming together, never mentioning my name. I noticed how Emily posted about her perfect wedding planning journey on social media, complete with aesthetic photos, while I was the one behind the camera making sure the lighting looked good. I was the invisible wire holding up all those pretty lights. And the worst part? I had convinced myself that being invisible meant I was doing it right. The accusation didn't come during a fight or a dramatic confrontation. It came in a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. It was 3 weeks before the wedding, and I had just dropped off the final seating chart at my parents' house. I walked into the kitchen to grab some water, and that's when I heard my mother talking to her sister, my Aunt Carol, in the hallway just around the corner. "I'm worried Audrey's going to cause drama," my mother said, her voice low but clear enough to cut through me like glass. "You know how she can be. She's been tense lately, and I just don't want her mood ruining Emily's big day." I froze with my hand on the fridge door, my heart suddenly pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it. My aunt responded with something I couldn't quite catch, but my mother continued. "I think it's better if we just manage her expectations. Keep her busy with tasks so she doesn't have time to stir anything up." The words hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. Tense? Drama? I had spent half a year making sure this wedding went perfectly, sacrificing weekends, skipping plans with friends, answering calls at all hours. And this was how she saw me. Not as help, not as support, as a problem that needed to be managed. I didn't walk into the hallway. I didn't confront her. I quietly set the glass down, grabbed my keys, and left through the side door before anyone saw me. The drive home felt surreal, like I was watching my own life from outside my body. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, and I kept replaying her words over and over. She'll cause drama. Manage her. Ruin Emily's big day. The cruelest part wasn't the accusation. It was realizing she truly believed it. In her mind, I wasn't the one holding everything together. I was the weak link, the risk, the thing that needed to be controlled. And for the first time in my life, I realized harmony in my family didn't mean peace. It just meant my silence. I used to think defending myself was the answer, that if I just explained enough, stayed calm enough, or showed enough proof, people would finally see me clearly. But standing there alone in my apartment that night, replaying my mother's words, something in me went very still. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, drafting and deleting messages I would never send. "After everything I've done, you think I'm the problem? How dare you call me drama?" Every version sounded like begging for a kind of respect I had never really been given. Before I continue, make sure you're subscribed if you've ever reached that point of exhaustion with your family, and tap like if you know what it's like to be blamed just for existing. This next part was the turning point for me. Instead of sending a paragraph, I locked my phone and just listened to the quiet around me. There was no yelling, no one rolling their eyes, no one calling me too sensitive, just the soft hum of my fridge and my own breathing, slowly evening out. I realized that every time I had defended myself in the past, it always ended the same way. I was overreacting, taking things too personally, or making everything about me. The verdict was always decided before I even opened my mouth. So what was the point of arguing with a court that never intended to hear my side? That night, I made a different choice. I didn't text my mother. I didn't call my dad. I didn't even vent to a friend. I sat with the pain and the anger and let them burn through me like a fever. For the first time, I didn't rush to make things easier for everyone else. I didn't smooth it over or tell myself she didn't mean it. I accepted that she did mean it, that in her mind, I was a threat to the pretty picture she was trying to protect. And if my existence was such a danger to their version of harmony, maybe the kindest thing I could do for myself was to step out of the frame. The next morning, I opened my email and saw the wedding reminder Emily had forwarded me days earlier with a little heart emoji and, "Can't believe it's almost here," attached. Underneath it, I saw the spreadsheet link I'd made, the vendor list, the payment schedule I'd created, all neatly color-coded. My chest tightened, but this time it wasn't from panic. It was from clarity. I clicked reply all to Emily and my parents, took a deep breath, and typed, "Hey, I've been thinking a lot, and I've decided I won't be attending the wedding. I hope the day is everything you want it to be. Wishing you both the best. Audrey." No explanations, no justifications, just a clean, simple RSVP. No. It felt like pulling a keystone out of an arch without touching a single stone. Quiet, precise, final. I stared at the email for a long time before hitting send, my finger hovering over the trackpad like it weighed 1,000 pounds. If this moment sounds familiar, choosing yourself for the first time in a long time, hit subscribe and leave a like, because what happens next is where everything really starts to unravel. And I'd love to hear in the comments if you've ever walked away from something that was supposed to be happy. When I finally clicked send, my heart didn't explode. The sky didn't fall. No one burst into my apartment demanding an explanation. The world stayed exactly the same, but something inside me shifted completely. For years, my mother had counted on my compliance, on my willingness to endure discomfort for the sake of keeping the peace. She never imagined I'd simply opt out. And that was the beauty of it. There was no scene, no shouting match, no dramatic exit in the middle of a party. Just my absence, quietly rearranging the weight of everything they'd built on top of me. What I took with me wasn't anger or revenge. It was information. 6 months of vendor calls, payment schedules, contact numbers I had saved in my phone under names like Florist, Emily Wedding, and DJ, final payment due May 10th. I had been the central hub for everything. The person the caterer texted when they needed a head count, the one the venue coordinator called when there was a scheduling conflict, the contact name on half the invoices. My mother had handed me that binder like it was a gift, but what she'd really done was make me the load-bearing wall of the entire event. And when I sent that email declining my attendance, I didn't offer to hand anything over. I just stopped answering. The florist called 2 days later. I saw the name light up on my screen while I was making coffee, and I let it ring. Then came a text. "Hi, Audrey. Just confirming final bouquet count for May 15th. Can you get back to me by end of week?" I read it, sipped my coffee, and didn't reply. The DJ sent an email asking about the reception timeline and song requests I had been coordinating with Emily. I archived it. The venue coordinator needed to confirm table arrangements and the final payment deadline. I marked it as read and moved on with my day. It felt strange at first, like breaking a reflex I didn't know I had. This automatic need to fix, respond, smooth things over. But with each notification I ignored, I felt lighter. They thought all these details ran themselves, that weddings just came together if you paid enough money and picked pretty colors. What they didn't realize was that someone had been standing behind the curtain, making sure every piece landed in the right place at the right time. My mother had built this celebration on my invisible labor, and now that I had stepped back, the whole structure was quietly starting to tilt. No one noticed yet, not in those first few days, but the cracks were already forming. And the thing about cracks is, they don't announce themselves with noise. They just grow, slowly and steadily, until something finally breaks. The first visible crack appeared about 10 days before the wedding. My phone started lighting up more frequently, but this time it wasn't vendors. It was my mother. The first call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at work. I saw Mom flash across the screen, let it go to voicemail, and went back to my meeting. She left a message, her voice tight and clipped. "Audrey, the florist is saying they never got a final count. Can you please call them back? I don't have time to deal with this right now." I listened to the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Before I go any further, make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button if you've ever felt the power of just not responding anymore. Because what happens next is when the panic really sets in. 2 days later, Emily texted me, "Hey, did you confirm the cake tasting changes with the bakery? They're saying they only have the original order on file and we're running out of time." I read the message, saw the little typing bubbles appear and disappear as she waited for my reply, and I set my phone face down on the counter. My heart was racing, but not from guilt, from something else. Something that felt uncomfortably close to satisfaction. For so long, I had been the person who jumped at every request, who fixed problems before they even became problems, who carried other people's stress so they didn't have to. Now I was watching them realize, in real time, how much they had leaned on me without ever saying thank you. The calls and texts multiplied. My dad sent a message. "Audrey, your mom is really stressed. Can you just help out with a few last things?" Jason, my brother, texted, "Dude, what's going on? Mom's freaking out about vendor stuff. Did something happen?" I didn't block anyone. I didn't send angry responses or explanations. I just let the messages sit there, unread and unanswered, like stones sinking to the bottom of a river. They were used to my silence, meaning compliance, my quietness, meaning I was handling things. They didn't know how to read this new kind of silence, the one that meant I was done carrying what was never mine to hold. The delays started small, like missed appointments that should have been confirmed weeks ago. The florist sent an updated invoice with a rush fee because no one had finalized the arrangement details on time. The photographer emailed the family group chat, one I was still technically part of but had muted, asking if someone could clarify the shot list since the original contact isn't responding. I saw my mother's reply in real time, her words careful and stiff. "I'll handle it from here." But she didn't know what I knew. She didn't have the notes from the 3 phone calls I'd had with the photographer about lighting preferences, family dynamics, and which relatives shouldn't be seated near each other. The cake became another issue. Apparently, the bakery had the wrong flavor for 2 of the tiers because no one had followed up on the tasting change Emily requested last month. My sister called the bakery in a panic, and they told her the original contact, me, had been handling all the adjustments, and without confirmation, they went with the first order. Emily posted a vague, stressed-out story on Instagram. "Wedding planning is so much harder than people think." I saw it while scrolling during lunch and felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no urge to fix it. Just a quiet, distant awareness that the picture she'd been curating online was starting to crack at the edges. My mother tried to patch things together, making calls, sending emails, asking my dad and Jason to help, but they didn't know the questions to ask, or the details that mattered. My dad called a vendor and got transferred 3 times because he didn't have the account number. Jason tried to confirm the DJ's setup time and got confused about load-in versus ceremony start. They were all suddenly aware of how much invisible work had been happening behind the scenes, and how little they understood about any of it. If you've ever watched people scramble to fix something they took for granted, make sure you're subscribed and drop a like, because what comes next is when the blame starts flying, and it's wild. Behind closed doors, my name started coming up more than the bride's. I know this because my cousin Sophie, one of the few family members I actually trusted, texted me one night. "Just so you know, your mom is losing it. She keeps saying, 'Where is Audrey?' And 'Why isn't Audrey helping?' I thought you should know." I stared at that message for a long time, sitting on my couch with a cup of tea going cold in my hands. There was something surreal about watching from a distance as people finally noticed my absence, not because they missed me, but because things weren't working anymore. My Aunt Carol, the same one who had been in the kitchen during that whispered conversation, apparently asked my mother directly, "What happened with Audrey? Did you two have a fight?" My mother's response, according to Sophie, was defensive and vague. "She's just being difficult right now. You know how she can be." That phrase again, "how she can be," like I was a weather pattern she couldn't control, instead of a person who had finally stopped letting her control me. The irritation in her voice was thinly veiled panic, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've miscalculated badly and doesn't want to admit it. Emily called me for the first time in weeks, and I actually answered. Her voice came through shaky and confused. "Audrey, what's going on? Mom said you're not coming to the wedding, and now everything is falling apart. Did I do something wrong?" There was genuine confusion in her tone, like she truly didn't understand. And maybe she didn't. Maybe she had been so focused on being the bride, on living her perfect moment, that she never stopped to see who was building the stage beneath her feet. I took a breath and said very calmly, "I just think it's better if I don't attend. I hope you have a beautiful day, Emily." She tried to push, asking why, asking what happened, but I didn't give her anything to hold on to. I just repeated, "I hope it's everything you want it to be," and ended the call. The silence that followed felt like the first full breath I'd taken in months. The realization didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, like cold water rising around their ankles. It was 5 days before the wedding when my mother finally put the pieces together. I know the exact moment because Sophie sent me a screenshot of a family group text I'd been removed from. My mother had written, "Does anyone have Audrey's vendor spreadsheet? We need the payment schedule and contact list ASAP." My brother replied, "I thought you had all that?" My dad wrote, "Isn't it in the binder?" And then, silence. That terrible, dawning silence when people realize the thing they're looking for doesn't exist anywhere, except in the hands of the person who's gone. Sophie told me later that my mother spent an entire afternoon trying to reconstruct my work, calling vendors one by one, asking what had been confirmed, what was still pending, what invoices were outstanding. The venue coordinator told her 3 payments were overdue because Audrey usually handles those reminders. The caterer asked if the final headcount was still 150 or if it had changed, because we've been waiting for Audrey to confirm. Every call was another reminder that I hadn't just been helpful, I had been essential, and they had treated me like I was replaceable, or worse, like I was the problem. If this is hitting you right now, hit subscribe and leave a like, because the moment they finally said my name out loud was absolutely priceless, and I want to hear in the comments if you've ever had a moment like this. That evening, someone, I'm guessing my mother, though I'll never know for sure, created a new group text with my parents, Emily, Jason, and me. The message read, "Audrey, we really need to talk. There are things only you know about the wedding, and we're running out of time. Can we please sit down and go through everything?" It was polite, measured, but underneath it I could feel the desperation, the unspoken plea, "Please come back and fix this." I read it 3 times, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of me, old me, wanted to swoop in and save the day, to prove I wasn't petty or cruel, to show I was the bigger person. But then I remembered my mother's voice in that hallway. "Manage her. She'll cause drama, ruin Emily's big day." And I put my phone down without typing a single word. The call I didn't answer came 2 days before the wedding. My phone rang at 9:47 p.m., my mother's name lighting up my screen like an alarm I'd learned to ignore. It rang 6 times, then stopped. 30 seconds later, it rang again, then again. I sat on my couch, watching it vibrate across the coffee table, feeling strangely calm. This was the same woman who had whispered about managing me like I was a liability, who had built an entire celebration on my unpaid labor, and then painted me as the threat. Now she needed me, and the power in that moment was dizzying. She left a voicemail. I waited until the next morning to listen to it, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and sunlight streaming through the window. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the cracks. "Audrey, I know you're upset, and we can talk about that after the wedding, but right now I need you to help me. Please. The bakery is saying they need confirmation on delivery time. The florist needs the final centerpiece count, and I don't have half the information I need. This is your sister's wedding. Please don't let whatever is going on between us ruin her day." There it was again. Ruin her day. As if my absence was sabotage, instead of self-preservation, I deleted the voicemail without saving it. No response. No explanation. Just silence. The kind that had protected them for years, now working in reverse. Apologies wrapped in urgency aren't real apologies. They're just negotiations. She wasn't sorry I'd been hurt. She was sorry it was inconvenient. She didn't want to understand what she'd done wrong. She wanted me to come back and make the problem disappear. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe her that. I didn't owe anyone my pain turned into productivity, my silence turned into service. I let the phone stay dark and quiet, and I went about my day like nothing had happened. Because for me, finally, nothing had. The wedding day arrived, and I woke up in my apartment to the kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. No alarms reminding me to confirm vendors. No texts asking where I was or what still needed to be done. No last-minute panic calls. Just sunlight coming through my curtains and the quiet hum of a Saturday morning that belonged entirely to me. I made breakfast. Real breakfast. Not something grabbed between errands. And sat by the window with my coffee, knowing that miles away, my family was scrambling through a day I had spent half a year building for them. Sophie texted me around noon. "You're not going to believe this. The ceremony started 20 minutes late because no one knew where the backup microphone was. Your mom is running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Emily looks stressed." I read the message and felt something I didn't expect. Not satisfaction exactly, but a strange kind of neutrality. I wasn't happy they were struggling, but I also wasn't rushing to save them. I had spent so long being the person who fixed things before they broke, that watching them navigate the consequences of taking me for granted felt like watching a lesson I didn't have to teach. I just had to let it happen. Throughout the day, updates trickled in. The florist delivered the centerpieces to the wrong entrance and no one knew who to call. The DJ showed up on time but didn't have the finalized playlist I'd been coordinating with Emily, so he played generic wedding music that wasn't what she'd envisioned. The cake arrived, but with the wrong flavors on 2 tiers, just like the bakery had warned. My dad apparently spent half the cocktail hour on the phone trying to sort out a payment issue with the photographer, because no one had the invoice number. Things happened. The ceremony took place. People smiled. Photos were taken. But it wasn't smooth. It was a wedding standing on borrowed time, held together with duct tape and sheer willpower, and everyone there could feel it. What surprised me most wasn't the chaos. It was how calm I felt watching it unfold from a distance. I spent that afternoon reading a book I'd been meaning to finish for months, taking a long walk through my neighborhood, and cooking myself dinner without checking my phone every 5 minutes. For years, I had believed that being needed was the same as being valued, that my worth was measured by how much I could carry for other people. But sitting there in my quiet apartment, I realized something powerful. My value didn't come from their dependence. It came from me, and it had always been there, buried under years of putting everyone else first. I thought about my mother's voicemail, her words looping in my mind. Don't let whatever is going on between us ruin her day. The irony was almost funny. She had framed my absence as an attack, as me choosing to punish them, when really it was the opposite. I had simply stopped pretending that being invisible was the same as being part of the family. I had stopped offering my labor, my time, my energy to people who saw me as a tool instead of a person. And the fact that the wedding struggled without me wasn't proof that I was petty. It was proof that I had mattered all along, even when no one wanted to admit it. If you've ever felt that shift, that moment when you realize your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did, make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button, because this internal shift changed everything for me. And I'd love to know in the comments if you've experienced this too. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt free, like I had been holding my breath underwater for years, and someone had finally told me I was allowed to come up for air. The weight I'd been carrying, the endless responsibility, the guilt, the fear of disappointing people who never seemed satisfied, was gone. It didn't disappear because the wedding went badly. It disappeared because I finally gave myself permission to stop carrying it, and that permission didn't come from them. It came from me. That's the part they never understood. I wasn't punishing them by staying away. I was saving myself. The aftermath came slowly, like dust settling after a storm. 3 days after the wedding, my mother called again. This time I answered. Her voice was different, tired, smaller, like someone who'd just finished running a race they didn't train for. "Audrey, we need to talk," she said, and I could hear my dad in the background, murmuring something I couldn't make out. I sat down on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, and waited. She didn't apologize right away. Instead, she said, "The wedding was difficult. A lot of things went wrong that shouldn't have." I stayed quiet, letting the silence do the work I used to fill with reassurances. "People kept asking where you were," she continued, her voice tight. And I didn't know what to say. Emily was upset. Your father and I spent half the day putting out fires we didn't even know existed. There was a pause, long and uncomfortable, and then she said the thing I'd been waiting to hear. We didn't realize how much you were doing. We didn't realize how much we needed you. It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was an admission. And in my family, admissions were as close to accountability as you could get. I took a breath and said very calmly, I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left because I was tired of being treated like I only mattered when something needed fixing. The conversation didn't solve everything. My mother tried to defend herself, saying she never meant to make me feel that way, and that she was just stressed about the wedding. But I didn't let her rewrite the story. I told her exactly what I'd heard in the kitchen that day, the words she'd whispered to my aunt, and the way it had felt to realize I was seen as a problem instead of a person. She went quiet. My dad took the phone and said, We messed up, Audrey. We really did. It was the first time anyone in my family had said those words to me without a but following them. It didn't erase the hurt, but it cracked the door open just enough for me to see that maybe, eventually, something could be rebuilt, on different terms this time. The core lesson I learned from all of this isn't about revenge or proving a point. It's about understanding that belonging should never cost you your sense of self. For years, I had confused being useful with being loved, being quiet with being valued, being accommodating with being respected. I thought if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, stayed silent enough, I would finally earn the acceptance I'd been chasing. But the truth is, real belonging doesn't require you to shrink yourself or erase your needs. It doesn't ask you to carry everyone else's weight while pretending you don't have your own. The danger was never my presence at that wedding. The danger was how much they had come to depend on my absence not happening, on me always being there, always saying yes, always swallowing my hurt to keep the peace. They built an entire celebration, an entire family dynamic, on the assumption that I would never say no, never walk away, never put myself first. And when I finally did, the whole structure wobbled because it had never been designed to stand without me holding it up. That's not my failure. That's theirs. And recognizing that difference is what set me free. I don't know what the future holds for my family and me. Some relationships take time to heal, and some never fully do. But what I do know is this. I will never again mistake my silence for harmony, or my exhaustion for love. I will never again let someone make me feel like I'm too much, or causing drama, just because I have boundaries and expect to be treated with basic respect. The people who truly care about you won't see your needs as inconveniences. They'll see them as part of who you are, worthy of attention and care. And if walking away is what it takes to find that kind of respect, then walking away isn't the loudest loss. It's the quietest, most powerful win. If you've ever been the silent support, the invisible wire, the person everyone counted on but no one really saw, this story is yours too. You're not alone in feeling like you had to disappear to finally be noticed, or like setting boundaries made you the villain in someone else's story. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories about reclaiming your power, finding your voice, and choosing yourself without apology. And make sure to watch the next video, where I'll be talking about what happened after that phone call with my mother, and how I started rebuilding my life on my own terms. Because sometimes walking away is just the beginning, not the end. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to step back from family or friends to protect your peace? What happened when you finally put yourself first? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. And remember, your worth isn't defined by how much you can carry for other people. It's defined by how you carry yourself. I'll see you in the next one.